Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're untangling a very public and pretty heated exchange between three really powerful figures: a pope, a former president, and a Catholic commentator. All of them are weighing in on a global conflict, and what you get is this fascinating clash of faith, politics, and modern warfare.
All right, let's just dive right in with a statement that basically lit the fuse on this whole thing. It's a sharp, super direct criticism of the new American Pope, Leo XIV, and it's coming straight from former President Donald Trump. But what on earth did the Pope say to get this kind of reaction?
Well, to really get Trump's reaction, we have to rewind and look at the Pope's original message. It's pretty clear his words on the war in Gaza struck a major political nerve, and that's what triggered this entire debate.
So the Pope's message was really a straightforward plea to de-escalate. He called the conflict an unjust war, and he zeroed in on the human cost. The children, the elderly, the sick. He also made a point to say that hitting civilian infrastructure is a violation of international law, and he actually encouraged regular people to push their own leaders to work for peace.
And this is where you can see the two sides are just on completely different planets. On the one hand, you have the Pope's plea, which is all rooted in this gospel message, right? Reject war, protect the innocent. But then on the other side, Trump completely reframes it. He turns it into a political issue, calling the Pope weak on policy and crime and telling him to ditch the politics and just use common sense.
And believe me, Trump did not stop there. This went way beyond just a policy disagreement. He started questioning the Pope's legitimacy, his political leanings. He criticized him for meeting with Obama sympathizers, called him a shocking surprise as Pope, and then just flat out said he would not apologize. This was a full-on political takedown of a religious leader.
Okay, but the story doesn't end with Trump. A totally new voice jumps into the ring, and it's not another politician. It's actually a direct, very personal appeal to the Pope himself. And that voice belongs to Erin Molan. She's a Catholic commentator, and she took a completely different angle. She framed her response as an open letter, speaking to Pope Leo not as a political figure, but as her spiritual leader. It's a perspective from right inside the faith community.
And her opening is, wow, it's powerful. She says, look, I know your intentions are good, but what you're saying is actually having a really negative impact. She basically believes that, in this case, his voice is doing way more harm than good.
So, how exactly does she break down the Pope's position? Well, she zeroes in on his statements about the war in Gaza, that conflict he was talking about earlier, and she just methodically pulls apart the whole premise of his argument. Molan takes direct aim at this specific quote, which is apparently from a book the Pope has coming out. He says that some international experts believe the conflict has the characteristics of a genocide, and that one word, genocide, that is a very, very loaded term, and it becomes the absolute centerpiece of her entire counter-argument. So here are her core counterpoints. She starts bringing in a completely different set of expert opinions, arguing that many have totally rubbished that genocide claim. She points out that former NATO and U.S. generals see Israel's operations as legal, and that even the U.S. administration hasn't found evidence of Israel targeting civilians on purpose. And she draws this really key distinction. Israel, as a democracy, holds itself accountable when it does wrong, which, she argues, is the total opposite of Hamas. And then, to really drive her point home, she shifts the focus and defines the other player in this conflict, Hamas. She describes them as a terror organization whose stated mission is to kill Jews and destroy Israel, and she references their use of human shields and the horrors of October 7th, where hostages, including babies, were taken and are in fact still being held.
But here's the thing. Her critique isn't just about tearing down his argument. It actually leads her to propose a completely different way to get to that peace the Pope is calling for. And the way she frames it, it's a simple, direct solution.
For Molan, the path to peace is crystal clear, and the responsibility for it lies squarely with Hamas. She argues this war could literally end today if the terrorists would just release the hostages and surrender. That's it. In her view, that is the immediate off-ramp to this whole conflict.
So then she poses this really direct question to the Pope. She asks him, what's the alternative? What is a nation supposed to do when it's facing an enemy that is promised over and over again to attack? It's a real challenge about a government's most basic duty, protecting its people.
So her final plea isn't for the Pope to just be silent. It's a call for him to redirect his huge, immense global influence. She's begging him to use that formidable voice to put pressure on the terrorists, because she sees them as the real root cause of all this suffering.
Okay, so after all of that, what should we take away from this? Because this isn't just about one conflict. What this whole debate really shows us is a fundamental tension that's playing out all over the world right now.
At its very core, what we're seeing is a collision between two worldviews. It's this universal moral call for peace running headfirst into the grim, messy reality of fighting an enemy that just doesn't play by the same rules. It really raises a tough question. How can moral authority even be effective in a situation like this?
And that leaves us with one last massive question for our time. In a world that's this polarized, where information itself is a weapon, what is the role of a global religious leader? Can a message of universal peace actually cut through the chaos of modern war? Or does it just risk becoming another political tool? Honestly, there are no easy answers.